So, lessons learned. You never ever leave a newbie unattended. Hey everyone, this is Chef Katrina, and this is I was turning into a documentary of what a 90-day challenge might look like and what are some of the lessons you can learn along the way, especially if you're building and trying to be the CEO or making yourself the CEO of your own company, right? Couple of things today. I was getting really bold today, so I put it out on social media that I was doing this documentary, and I said, hey, I'm kind of highlighting what I'm doing in my day, recapping the lessons that I've learned each day, because every day through 90 days, there's definitely a lesson to be learned. What works, what doesn't work, what are some skill sets, and what I'm finding inside of this 90-day challenge is that a lot of the skill sets that I've learned from the kitchen, which you might think is a little ironic, but the lessons I've learned from a kitchen have really started to help me understand what it is to build my team and how to support them and how to, even onboard new people, right? How to work with my VAs, how to work with people that are supporting my business, how to bring on team members, how to coach team members, right? So one of the things I've learned early on in the kitchen is that when you are bringing in a new person to the kitchen, you never leave them unattended. So every time we brought in a new culinarian into the kitchen, they were always assigned a trainer, right? It didn't matter how much experience they had. It didn't matter if they had 20 years in the kitchen or this was like their first day in the kitchen. Every single one of them had a trainer. And the reason for that is that they didn't know that kitchen. While they might have been successful and, a well-known chef or cook that's, many, many years in the kitchen, what they don't know is the recipes that are happening in that kitchen. And what they don't know is the culture of that kitchen. What they don't know is how this kitchen works, jives, the language they speak, the interactions that are expected from them, right? So one of the things that I've learned over the years is that you always have to put a trainer with every new person that comes in. And it doesn't matter their experience, right? It doesn't matter how new or how well-versed they are in the business, right? So what I've learned today, right, is I'm bringing in some leaders. I definitely have some top people that are coming into my organization, onto my team. And they're new to this. They don't know what the Young Entrepreneur Project is. They've never been inside this culture, this company. There's definitely a lot of language you use, a lot of acronyms that we use to describe things. And I've always said one of the hardest things you can do to a person is give them acronyms and expect them to know what they are. And trust me, if there's the company that does acronyms better than anybody, I will tell you it's Disney. Disney employees have created acronyms for everything. And so you could be talking to somebody and it's like the whole thing is acronyms, right? Which can be the most frustrating thing for a new person to hear because they're not understanding the language. They think it's like an inside language and they start to feel left out because they don't have that language skill yet. So one of the things, and I talked about it yesterday, right? I always said, if you're going to bring somebody in, the two things you always want to be doing is you want to be building your team yourself. You always have to be prospecting because leaders lead from the front. So that means they're actively bringing people in. They're actively prospecting. They're actively having conversations. And I said, like the second thing yesterday, which you have to learn, and you can go watch that in yesterday's video, but that's part of the process, right? So today, was definitely a fun day. So it was all about onboarding new people and just making sure there's a system in place. So I talk about it in the description, and I truly mean this, right? When you are being the trainer, you have to have the patience to bring somebody on because what you're doing is you're developing your leaders, right? The people that you're bringing on, yeah. I've worked with companies and a lot of people, and the thing that annoys them the most is bringing somebody on. Onboarding somebody is what they call that, right? Teaching them the process. But I also remember from the kitchen, that's their most exciting time because they're curious about everything and they just need some guidance, right? So typically, what do we have in a kitchen that helps a new person get started, right? Well, typically we bring them in, we introduce them to everybody. So that's like my number one thing. So anybody that joins my team, I introduce them to the group, to the team, because I want everybody to get to know everybody, who they are, what they do. So I want to make sure that they get that welcome, they get that thank you, that they step into an environment where they feel comfortable, right? So I'm always welcoming that person in because that's the most critical, like first time they're going to get introduced to everybody, right? So I always recommend that if you're going to be building a business, build your team and invite your team to get to know your team. Really, really critical in the very beginning, because as they bring people in, they want to feel like they can bring people in and they get part of that group, right? You don't want them to feel like excluded or on their own. So the first thing you want to do is you want to welcome into your tribe. Like, hey, welcome, you're here, and let me introduce you to some other people that are in here, right? Because no person is alone, no matter what business you're in, whether you're in a kitchen, whether in your corporate environment. If you really think about it, you always walk into a group of people, and the best thing you can do is have somebody introduce you so that you feel like you've got a common ground, right? So introduce them to the group. The second thing that you want to do is you want to give them a checklist. Like, what's their first steps? What are the first things they have to do to get started? And what I've discovered is a checklist is usually the fastest way. I remember in the kitchen, every time I was trained to work a new station in the kitchen, I was always given a checklist. And what I discovered over the years, that it didn't matter how well I knew that station, how well I thought I knew that station, I always had that checklist right there in front of me. And the reason I had that checklist was to make sure I was doing the things that needed to get done every single day, right? So I always have like a welcome checklist, like the things they need to do when they first get started. If you check everything on this list, right? Because I want to empower them to be able to ask questions, show them around the house or show them around the kitchen or show them around the back office. So I create a checklist that's simple enough that they can start going through that will spark them in asking questions. Because once they start asking questions, I can gauge their skill set, their level, what they're looking for, right? So the next thing I want to do is I want to introduce them to the party. Right? I want to introduce them to a way for them to actively work with other leaders, to show them how they're talking to other people, how they're engaging with other people. I want to have them watch somebody else maybe cook the steaks, right? I want to have them stand next to me as I flip the pan. So the reason I'm using these analogies is because it's really important to understand that it's all about showing the person what to do. The worst thing we can do when we're building a business, any type of business, is to leave people on their own and just tell them, oh, if you need anything, just ask. They don't even know what to ask at that point. They don't even know where to get started. So I always invite people when they get in is that I've got to remember, and I'm doing this to myself, right? So a couple of things I learned today. First off, those that come into my team, the first thing I want to do is introduce them to my community. The second thing I want to do is I want to tag them on that checklist. And I want to tag them on the video that I've done that walks them through that checklist. So they see it both visually and they can see it like on the screen so they can print it out. So I always want to do that one. So I want to give them confidence that they can watch it and they can follow along, right? Because I know that learners are both. There's people that want to watch it and they'll learn. There's people that need the checklist to learn. And I want to combine those skill sets where they're actually checking off boxes, okay? So this is one of the things that, and it's like all like coming back to me when I'm starting to look at how I'm building my business, how I'm bringing on team members. So I'm bringing on team members for my Young Entrepreneur Project. I'm also onboarding a new designer that's creating pins for me. So what I'm learning in the process is that I have to put together processes and procedures. I have to be able to document what I'm doing to be able to hand that off, right? And then I need to go through that documentation with the person that I'm handing it off to make sure that it makes sense. If it makes sense to them in the process, then the documentation is correct. And I feel that I can hand that to that person and they can train the next person, right? So I'm always looking to train the trainer is what we call that. We're looking to develop the team, give them the confidence to be able to take on and do their accountability, answer their questions. And then from there, you're developing your leadership team so that they get resourceful and they duplicate that mannerism, right? We talk a lot of times about duplication in business, duplication with your team. Even to some extent in the kitchen, there's duplication. We want them to do the same actions as that are required. And so we're always looking for that duplication. And the way to do that duplication is to get them to mimic what you're doing. So it is really true when people say, hey, whatever you do, that's what your team's going to do, which is why you want to set the standard for them of what you're doing so that they have something to kind of mimic or follow along with, right? So what was interesting today is I worked with a lot of my team and they saw me for every single day this week so far. I've pretty much brought somebody in. And so now they're like, okay, what are you doing? All right. Like, what are you doing that's having those closing conversations? What are you doing with that? And I recognize that I haven't been sharing what I've been doing. So that's really what I had to start looking at today, was put in some processes and some checklists so that they feel confident in what they're doing, right? So that they have a guide or a map to follow. Just like when I bring somebody onto my team as a VA, I want them, I have to be able to articulate. I have to be able to communicate. I have to have the plan, right? And it might not be perfect, but that plan, starting to put it into place, is really important. So if you guys are curious about how to put together that plan, check out yesterday's video, because I talk about something that I think is really, really important that every person should be doing. It was like drilled into me at Disney and I didn't even know it. And then when I got into the company that I was with for a digital marketing company, I became their director of client experience. It was another thing that got drilled into me that was like put into my face obvious. And I was like, that makes more sense. So if you're looking to really build a company and build a business, you have to understand how people are looking to be trained. And if you don't know, reach out and ask me, right? Having worked in a kitchen, I trust me, I probably worked with every personality in the world, because when you're in a kitchen, not only do you work with the culinary team, but you're working with the back of the house team, the stewards, you're working with the front of the house team, you're actually working with guests also. So you really do become a very well-rounded person in terms of how you engage and interact with people. But what I will tell you right now is if you're building a business, no matter what it is, the first thing you do is that every person you bring onto your team, whether it's a network marketing business or it's a brick and mortar business, introduce that person to the team. Let them know who the key players are, who they can resource. Make sure they have a one-on-one call with them. They get to know them. They can fraternize with them. They can talk with them, because building those relations across your team actually is going to provide you with a stronger team. The second thing to do is document your get started list. Create that get started list now. Start looking at what was the first thing you did when you got started in your company. What's the first thing you want them to know? What's the first action you want them to take? What's the first training they need to plug into, right? Having that detailed step out, while it's tedious on our side the first time we do it, and it's tedious to train somebody for the first time, the benefit and the payoff will be long-term, because you'll retain somebody longer by being willing to invest in them in the beginning, but give them the investment so that they can learn to fly on their own and they have the confidence to share what they're doing with another person. That's how you truly build duplication. It's not so much what you say, but the system you put in play for people to be able to share to their team. And that way they all know how to get supported. They know how to get together. So really, it's been fascinating. Learning a lot in this process. This is really the first time I've done this 90 days. This is the first time I've built a network marketing team. I've definitely done, I've built out culinary teams. I've built out digital marketing communities. This is really one of the first times I'm building out for myself, and even what I've done for my courses. So it's actually improving my deliverability for my training courses for Pinterest, because I'm getting feedback around my training style, which allows me to improve it. So it's really important when you start building any business that the people you bring in, customers, employees, team members, that you get the feedback from them. Don't just let them be a one and done. Now that I'm saying this, I'm like, oh, I should probably do a customer email. Now I'm thinking about how to follow up, how to be engaged, how to provide better value. So that's one of the things I'm always looking for, is how can I provide better value? How can I provide better service? How can I provide better training? So these are all little details that come up inside of this. So really, a really powerful day. A lot of fun working with a lot of different team members, going over how to have conversations, looking at what the kind of conversations they're having, giving feedback, guiding them through the process. Really, it's strengthening my leadership skills and how I'm delivering content. Instead of being wishy-washy, I get to be really direct on what kind of content and what kind of information they should be sharing. So really, it's been an incredible learning tool for myself, because I'm learning how to give better training and give better conversations, I guess you could say, and really supporting the dialogue of how to talk to other entrepreneurs, which are business people, which translate across the globe when you really talk about how to build any business. So pretty darn cool what I'm learning. And we're only 12 days in, so I'm, you know, super, super excited to see what happens over the next 12 days and where I'll be at then, because we're gonna just continue having this conversation about just the different things to learn. And as we get more into this and as I start getting some better feedback, I'll probably start sharing some screen shares with you, start sharing some of the things that I'm learning, maybe some of the tools that I'm building out along the way. Might even show you the strategy for how I build the checklists, like what's my mental process for building all out. So if that's something you guys would like to see, is kind of like, how do you put together a checklist? How do you onboard somebody? How do you invite somebody to a community? If there's anything around that you would like for me to do more screen sharing or show and tell around, I'm totally open for that. So for those that are catching this live or catching the replay, and for those of you that have invited to watch me on my YouTube channel, now I'm totally freaked out. If I've been even doing good information, right? Oh my God, I'm trying to tell you that I'm screwing this all up, but having fun in the process. So, yeah, that's it. And I know I do it late at night because I thought about doing it earlier, but I honestly like kind of wrapping up my day and just kind of ending my night on a note of just having a personal conversation. So, yeah, very, very interesting. So, with that, like I said, I'm willing to kind of share and give away some of the processes that I've been putting together. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down in the chat. And as this storyline continues to grow and improve, we're gonna have some fun along the way. So thanks for plugging in. I have a feeling this is Jeff Beeman watching or lurking in the background. But yeah, just definitely jump in and ask questions and let me know if you're catching the replay. And if there's anything I can specifically point out around what I've been doing so far, like I said, I'm pretty much a structure in place and then kind of let it all go. So I can open up the doors behind that one and show you guys a little bit about how I put together a list, how I structure things out, how I welcome team members. So if that's something you're interested in learning more, let me know. And I'll do a live screen share of some of the thinking process behind the structure of building a business, because I know process and procedures are really what makes million, if not billion-dollar companies. So the more you can get better at, or the more you can improve that skill, and your communication skill are two things that really will make all the difference in your business. And I went a little long today, so it's almost midnight. I hope you guys are having a great one. If you want to learn more about the project that I'm working on, the Young Entrepreneur Project, if you're curious about, what this is about and how we're developing entrepreneurs, which I really like, because I like the fact that they can take this skill set anywhere they go in any business they go. And if they outgrow what I teach them, that's awesome. So I'm kind of opening the doors of what I've learned, even in being an advisory for the Young Entrepreneur Project, helping lead and kind of guide this company and giving some input in, that tells you just kind of like what's possible. So yeah, reach out, let me know what you need. And yeah, just thanks for jumping in and watching. And I hope you have a great evening. We'll chat again tomorrow, because tomorrow's gonna be really interesting. I've got some great calls that I'm supposed to have tomorrow, and I've got a couple of things I'm working on my blog. So it'll be really cool for you guys to plug in tomorrow and just kind of see what tomorrow's conversation leads to, because I have a feeling it's going to be very, very interesting. With that, I hope you're having a great evening, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good night, everyone.